Okay, it's 6:30, and if the clerk is ready, we'll begin this meeting.
Okay, Ms. Wu.
Hear you that well.
Here.
Okay.
Mr. Evans,
Here.
Ms. Hersey,
Here.
Ms. Colasetti,
Here.
Ms. Bishop,
Here.
Ms. Wilkin,
Here.
Mr. Quisenberry,
Here.
Mayor Marlin,
Here.
Supervisor Chenoweth, Mr. Williams,
I believe Mr. Williams will be joining us in a few minutes, and Danielle Chenoweth has sent, is it Yasmin or Jasmine? Can you tell me how to say it?
Jasmine.
Jasmine?
Yes.
Okay. She'll be representing Supervisor Chenoweth tonight.
okay, thank you.
This is a meeting of the Cunningham Township Board for Monday, November 8th, 2021. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from October 11th, 2021 and November 21st, 2021 special meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval of those 2 minutes.
Is there a second?
A second.
Moved by Mary Alice, seconded by Sharice. Any corrections? Grace?
Thank you. And I'm sorry I couldn't find the electronic version of these to send it in ahead of time. But on October 11th, approval of minutes, I don't know if we should add that I think there were some corrections there. They were mentioned in the other minutes, like if the minutes had corrections. So just maybe at the bottom saying was moved for approval with corrections by Trustee Wu.
Okay.
And for November 1st, just a quick thing to add that the assessor said is fine on the new business, the resolution, just part of the discussion where the assessor agreed to present a policy on the use of that data or images before using or sharing it.
We'll have to determine if the motion actually included that direction. That was one question that came up after the meeting. So we will determine if that was included in the motion or not.
Yes, well, I think as just part of the discussion, I was meaning for adding it as part of the discussion.
Okay.
And that's all I had for that. Thanks.
All right. Any other corrections? Jaya?
I just noticed that for the November 1st meeting, Danielle's listed both as one of the elected officials present as well as not present.
For the November 1st?
If I'm reading that correctly, under elected officials present via teleconference, supervisor, it says Danielle Chenoweth, but then below it says elected officials absent. She was not present at that meeting.
Good catch. Okay, thank you. So she was not present at that meeting. Thank you. Any other corrections? Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Ms. Colasetti,
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin.
Yes.
That motion passes. Next up is public participation. If you'd like to speak to the Cunningham Town Board, please raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any hands raised, and let the record show that Wayne Williams has joined the meeting. All right, we'll move on to reports of actually committee to verify bills. Jasmine?
Bills and accounting is going to be Nicole. I'll answer questions on programs.
Okay, Nicole, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, if I can answer any questions if you have them. I'm not sure exactly what Danielle goes over specifically.
Question.
Mary Alice.
Yes, so I noticed that under building repairs and maintenance, we spent approximately $19,000, which is very not ordinary for township. Based on what I could see in the bills, I think that was for perhaps fixing up the California rental. Can you confirm that?
So that would have been replacing the flooring in all of the units. They all had like really bad carpeting in it. So yes, we put new flooring in 6 of the 8 units.
Okay, all right.
There would have also been some miscellaneous, probably like, just minor fixes that needed to be done, but the vast majority.
So are you
of that
aware
was
if the number of updates to the buildings, if those are complete now?
So we are still working on putting the security system in. So that would be a bigger expense, and that may not be repairs so much as an asset. And we are also working on changing out all of the door locks to be key fobs, so that we don't have to keep rekeying the doorknobs. But there's just been things are stuck on boats, so that part of it has been going very slow. But yeah, so there will be a couple other big expenses.
So security and updating the types of locks, it sounds like.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Therese.
Is the security thing a reoccurring expense?
We are paying out, we've paid out half the contract. And then once we get it installed, we will pay out the remainder. And then basically we will just be keeping an eye on everything.
So is this security like cameras and stuff like that, or is it okay?
Correct. We will have cameras on all sides of the buildings in order to keep track of what is going on. As well, we're going to add a couple motion sensor lights. But it is just a one-time contract fee for that part.
So this is an expense. This is going to be a yearly thing that you'll have to. This is not going to be a yearly thing. Is the information or the whatever is that kept on site? Is it going to be recorded? How are?
So each of the buildings will have its own server that will be located within the building, locked up, inaccessible to the tenants. And we will have access to that server from the township supervisor's building. It is a one-time installation fee. There are not going to be recurring charges unless for some reason something would happen that would need to be repaired. The equipment we are ordering is pretty much tamper-proof as far as, just people trying to take it off, unlike a system you would put up yourself. So it's really very secured. We'll get all 4 sides of both buildings.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to just really quickly, Danielle usually goes over the amount spent in each fund. So $42,660.95 was spent in the town fund. $79,901 was spent in the GA fund for a total of $122,562 in this period.
Thank you, Wayne. James, did you have a question?
I do, and maybe I'll have to wait until Danielle is with us, but I'm curious. I am supportive of the security cameras as a as a measure to protect the property. But I am curious about how long the recordings are going to be retained and who is going to have access to see the cameras, either live or footage. I think that's the same kind of question we come across anytime there's imaging going on or cameras going on handled by a public body, just to make sure that those policies, both for auditing and retention and so forth, are shared. Just make sure someone's thought them through.
Sure, probably that would be a better question for Danielle, and I can certainly discuss it with her and make sure that we.
I can also give her a call, but I do think it's something that several of my other colleagues might want to know more about as well.
Absolutely, and my guess is that it will be very similar to what we are doing with the supervisor's office currently.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Nicole on the town fund or general assistance fund?
My other question is if there's a budget expectation for how much the maintenance is going to cost. I know you said there's not too much left to do, but I was just curious how it tracks versus what we expected to be investing in those properties.
Can you unmute, Nicole?
Sorry about that. So far, everything seems to be kind of within, what we were expecting. We are going through as units are opening and painting so that they look a little bit nicer. Occasionally, there will be some, actually, I don't even think we've really had any minor damage. So it's mostly just cleaning the apartments between tenants and changing the locks out right now, since we don't have that key or the key card system set up yet. So nothing too major. I think down the line we are talking about trying to make it more handicap accessible, but that is something we'll discuss in the future.
All right, thank you.
All right, could we get a motion to approve, to put on file the town fund and general assistance fund reports?
I'll move that we put those two funds on file.
You're supposed to approve the expenditures.
Fred, did you say that we had to approve the expenditures?
It's a motion to approve.
Yes.
Yes, the bills and the payments, they get approved.
Okay, then I amend it to a motion to approve the expenditures.
Second that.
Moved by Mary Alice, seconded by James. Any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Quisenberry,
Yes.
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop.
Yeah.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin,
Yes.
Ms. Colasetti.
Yes.
That motion passes. Next up, reports of officers. We'll begin with let's go with the supervisor's report, and I guess that'll be given by Jasmine. And then there will be a presentation on property tax by Wayne Williams.
Yes, so total town fund is 42 grand. General assistance fund is 79,901. Total and expenditures has been 122,562. Were there any questions on any of the programming or the reports on the programming for this last month?
Mary Alice.
I just have a small suggestion. I think it's very challenging when I look over these reports to have all different kinds of start dates. So my request would be that we're always talking about this fiscal year. So having numbers from July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022, because we have like all these different dates. So it's very hard. So that would just be my suggestion for this report.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Grace?
Thank you. I was wondering if you could share a little more about the eviction assistance and attending eviction court. I appreciate the numbers there and some of that information. And I was wondering if there was anything else kind of qualitative or identifying any kind of like needs or potential actions aside from or in addition to the numbers.
Yeah, so I think we do note here, but it might have missed that our case manager that does assist eviction or that does attend eviction court does take with them rental assistance application, emergency rental assistance applications as well, so that we can cover the county. We're talking to them. Once they're in eviction court, the ball is a little bit too far down the hill to do any preventative work. But as you may recall, Cunningham Township's rental assistance program does provide move-in assistance. And if approved at times, it does approve first month's rent as well. So it's really helping the next step. And they do take those applications with them to the courthouses. Did that answer your question?
Yes, I did in some ways. And I guess wondering too, like, I don't know if there's anything you can share too of like reasoning, like is a lot of it financial hardship and like, do these numbers compare to the past? And it's totally fine to not have all these answers, but just wondering if you have any of that to give a little more context to the situation.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about in the past what we've seen in eviction court. I do know though, since eviction court has started, we are seeing the numbers slowly increase each week. I know today in particular, there were 3 afternoon sessions to address first appearance cases. So it is increasing and we are seeing the numbers go up countywide.
And you're saying that at that point, it's kind of too far down in the process once they're already in eviction court. Is there another opportunity to intervene before then? Like, do people get, I don't know, a warning or a summons or something first that we could do some of that outreach at that point where like we know people are about to face eviction?
Yeah, and we've certainly seen an increase in the calls we're getting of people receiving 5-day notices or that at least a verbal notice from their landlord saying that they are going to be evicted. At that point in time, we do have our staff answering the phones, directing the people to tenant union and Land of Lincoln to receive their legal aid. But we are encouraging them to reach out to them and figure out what their options are. From my understanding at this time, evictions are varying between like fiscal and like financial reasons and more of like safety and health reasons as well. So depending on what it is and why they're facing eviction, their rights change and their next steps change. So it's directing them to the appropriate legal advice and then as well as getting them started on the application processes. And that's what we can do in office.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, well, I appreciate you guys monitoring that. And I'd be able to hear, anything else or maybe speak with the person on your attending those. And, if there's any other ideas of ways we can support, spread the word throughout the community before people get to that point. I would love to continue the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions for Jasmine? I would add a little bit of information on the utility disconnects. Yeah, I think the council received some information about this week. I spoke with Ameren, Carly Combest, who's the community relations coordinator there. I know the township has reached out to individuals who had received disconnect notices last week. They can also call, if they get a notice, 1-800-755-5000. And that is the phone at Ameren. Beginning December 1st through the end of March, the disconnect moratorium goes into effect during the winter months. So it's basically the month of November that these notices are sent out. Ameren also said that there will be no disconnect notices sent on November 10th and 11th due to the Veterans Day holiday. And in the month of November, these disconnect notices are weather dependent. So when it gets below, I believe, freezing for a certain period of time, then there is then the disconnect notices are suspended. But at any rate, if they haven't been contacted by Township, they can also call Township or the 800 number. And normally there's options presented to them, including setting up a payment plan, assistance from LIHEAP, and that sort of thing. But beginning in November, the disconnect moratorium goes into effect again through the winter months. All righty, thank you, Jasmine. And we'll move on to Wayne for your report.
So for my report, I'm going to do a quick presentation that's relevant to the levy resolution that you guys have today. So I am Wayne T. Williams Jr., Cunningham Township Assessor. Jason, can you go to the next slide, please? As Township Assessor, I am the one who develops your property's initial valuation. I am not the one who develops the tax rate. I'm not the one who hears complaints and acts on assessment complaints. I'm not the one who sends you your tax bill. Next slide, please. So if you could please hold your questions to the end, and I can discuss general assessment practice, but we don't quite have time to go over individual parcels. Next slide, please. So in the tax cycle in Champaign County, it's important to know what each body does. The state legislature makes the tax laws. Each taxing body sets its own levy, and you'll begin that process today for Cunningham Township. The Township Assessors develops values. The County Supervisor of Assessments equalizes values. The County Board of Review hears and acts on assessment complaints. The County Clerk receives and revises tax levies and develops tax rates. And the County Treasurer sends out the tax bills. Next slide, please. So where do Urbana taxes go? As you can see, the biggest chunk goes to the school district, with the next largest chunk goes to the city of Urbana, then the Park District. Cunningham Township has the second smallest slice at 2.8% of the tax bill for Urbana residents, with the smallest going to CU Public Health. We do have one taxing body that does not have a tax levy, and that's Urbana Champaign Sanitary District. Next slide, please. So it's important to know that changing assessments does not necessarily automatically mean an equal change in property tax bills. So if I increase everyone's assessment by 10%, it doesn't necessarily mean tax bills are going to increase 10%. Next slide, please. So when it comes to developing the tax rates, can you go to the next slide? Just kind of forward, keep going. So the taxing body creates a tentative budget. You guys typically do that in a few months before June. You have a notice and hearing, you approve the budget, usually in May or June. And then fast forward to now, you have a levy notice and hearing. And then in December, the levy gets certified and sent to the clerk. Next slide, please. So assessed versus appraised. So this is important to kind of know the difference. Regular maintenance is not considered in development of valuation for property tax purposes. Next slide, please. So here you can you go over. So here you have two roofs, and even though one roof is in better condition than the other, they would be assessed the same. Next slide, please. So EAVs must be based on, and EAV stands for Equalized Assessed Value. It's based on fair cash value. It's multiplied by, the fair cash value is multiplied by 33.33%, except in Cook County. It's the value as of January 1st, which is of the assessment year. And it's based on the 3 prior years of sales. Next slide, please. And if you could just forward this over, a couple more. Okay, right there. So the assessor, what I do is I place initial value on property. The supervisor equalizes the value and sends out change notices. The Board of Review holds hearings for assessment complaints. And then, can you go to the next slide, please? And then what happens to those rates is, what happens to those assessments is the Board of Review ends up sending them to the county clerk. And so what happens is the tax rates, so the tax levies, that's what the government is asking for to spend from property taxes. The assessed values are what I determine along with, changes by the supervisor of assessments, the Board of Review. And what happens is the billable EAV of the entire township divided by the tax levy from the township. That's how you get the tax rate for the township. Same thing for the city, the school district, and all the other taxing districts. Next slide, please. So in 2019, Cunningham Township's real estate extended tax levy, and it's 2019, was $1,825,177.95. In 2020, the township's extended tax levy was $1,227,339. Now, I say extended because Mary Alice and Therese were on the board in 2019 and 2020 when they actually did the levy resolution. In 2019, the levy request was actually, in 2019, $1,471,734. And in 2020, it was $2,300,000 even. And the reason that there's a difference between what was levied and what was actually extended is because Cunningham Township is subject to tax caps. So in 2019, we were subject to the PTEL tax cap, which only allows us to raise our levy the rate of inflation or 5%, whatever is less, not including new property. In 2020, because Cunningham Township taxpayers passed a tax rate increase, our levy was limited to the tax rate. What happens is we typically levy a little more than what we expect to get, and that has to do with the Carl litigation. If Carl were to come on, we want to be able to realize the new EAV that we would get from Carl. So in 2019, our rate setting EAV was $596,954,779. In 2020, the rate setting EAV was $605,365,820. What that does not include are exemptions and the amount of growth in TIFs. And if you can go to the next slide, please. In 2019, the tax rate was, can you go back? In 2019, the tax rate was 0.2056. In 2020, it was 0.3015, and that 0.3015 is the rate that was authorized by the referendum. All right, next slide, please. So these are the various exemptions. The general homestead exemption is and all of these are in assessed value numbers. The general homestead exemption, $6,000. Senior citizen is $5,000. The senior freeze is based on the base assessment year. The homestead improvement exemption is up to $25,000 of assessed value. Returning veterans is $5,000. Veterans with disabilities can get an exemption up to 100% of the EAV. And persons with disabilities can get a $2,000 off their assessed value. If you want to know what those numbers equate to in market value numbers, you just multiply those numbers by 3. Next slide, please. So these numbers are based off of our tax rate as of the most recent tax bill, which is approximately 10.7566. So in real dollar numbers, the general exemption saves a person $645.40 on their tax bill. The senior citizen homestead exemption saves an additional $537.83. The senior freeze saves $107.57 per $1,000 of increase from the base year in the assessed value. The homestead improvement exemption saves up to $2,689.15. The returning veterans is again $537.83. And persons with disabilities saves $215.13. These are based off the most recent tax rate. If the tax rates were to go up, it would save more. If the tax rates were to go down, the savings would be less. Next slide, please. So who should you call if you have questions? Next slide. If you have assessment complaints or exemptions, you would want to call the Champaign County Assessment Office, and their numbers are on the screen. If you have questions about taxing body levies and rates, the Champaign County Clerk has all that information. Next slide. If you have questions about tax bills, you should call the County Treasurer. And if you have questions about the assessment of individual properties, you're more than welcome to call my office, Cunningham Township Assessor's Office, at 217-367-7059. You can reach us online at ctao.us. Next slide. You guys have any questions?
I have a question. Mary Alice has a question.
Yeah, I can't see hands.
I have a
Go
question.
ahead, Mary Alice.
Thank you. So Wayne, I'm not familiar with the homestead improvement exemption. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so if you were to add a bathroom or add square footage and you live in a home and it's your primary residence, so basically you meet all of the qualifications of the owner occupied exemption. Let's say you add an addition and it adds $30,000 to the value of your home, right? I would assess that at a third of market value, which is $10,000. So your assessment would go up $10,000, but you would get a $10,000 exemption because of the homestead improvement exemption. And that's an exemption that's applied automatically by my office.
And how long?
And it lasts for 4 years.
It lasts for 4 years.
Okay. It lasts for 4 years. So at year 5, you know, and we get the calls, people, if it's a big improvement, you know, there is a jump in the tax rate.
Okay.
I'm sorry, not the tax rate, the tax bill.
Any other questions for Wayne? James.
Would that apply to, we see a lot of people adding solar to their home. Do you?
No, home solar has a preferential assessment. So it basically doesn't add anything to the assessed value. We do try to notate it on the property record card, but because it has a preferential assessment, it basically doesn't, it adds 0.
Thank you.
Chris.
Wayne, you might not know this, but do you have any sense for how many complaints there are about the assessed value of people's homes?
I think I can find that out pretty quickly. If I could just get the next question, I can come back and answer that, Chris, if there are any more questions.
Sharice.
Hi, Wayne. With the homestead improvement value, that is only, does that only apply to additions to like square footage to a home, or does it apply for also if you have a garage built, or if like a detached garage, not an attached garage, but or some other structure put on your property?
So let me answer Chris's question first. We had approximately 125 complaints, so it wasn't a bad year for us. To answer Sharice's question, if you live in a home on the property, and the property otherwise qualifies for the general homestead exemption, anything that you build where it would cause me to come out and add assessed value that qualifies for the homestead improvement. So that would include a garage. It would not include, say, a shed that's not permanently affixed to the foundation. If you added another floor, if you added a bathroom, if you added a porch or a deck or a sunroom, all of those are examples of things that would add to the assessed valuation. If you add an above ground pool, that would not, because we don't assess above ground pools. If you add an in-ground pool, that would, because we do assess in-ground pools. We don't assess pergolas. I got that question once.
What's a pergola? What?
It's kind of like a gazebo.
Okay.
I had to Google it because I always thought of them as gazebos, but they're not.
Okay.
There's a difference.
Is that something that would be attached to the house? I've just never heard that term. So,
you know, I heard it for the first time 3 years ago.
Okay.
They are typically not, but I mean, we didn't have a lot of pergolas growing up where I'm from, so I couldn't tell you.
Obviously, we don't have any over here either.
Oh, we do.
Okay.
In Urbana, we have them because I got the question.
Okay. The other question that I have is, so if someone just did a home improvement indoors, like redid their bathroom or something like that, that it doesn't mean that. It just means that if you add square footage of some sort to your domicile, then you would have to be reassessed.
You kind of cut out there. Can you repeat that, please?
If you were adding square footage to your house, to your home, then that would cause the home to be reassessed, and that's where the home improvement, home improvement homestead tax would kick.
Homestead improvement exemption. It would.
Yeah.
Or like if you had a if you had like a sunroom and you turned it into like living area, right? Like that would cause me to come out and add value to that because it's going, from one type of area to living area, that would trigger the homestead exemption as well.
Okay.
We have time for one more question. Grace.
Thank you for the presentation and explaining all of that. And I was wondering, as far as this resolution here, so my understanding is that the levy is 2.3 million, which is 126% of last year's levy. Is that right?
No, so the levy last year was actually 2.3 million. However, the amount extended was
about 1.8 something.
Okay. Approximately 1,825,177.95. So the 2.3 million represents 126% increase. So, and again, the reason we do that is we still have some uncertainty about Carl. If Carl were to be added, that's approximately almost a quarter of the assessed valuation of the township, right? So you have to levy to be able to capture that new growth. Otherwise, because we're in a tax cap county, you can't, we wouldn't be able to do that.
Okay, if we've got general questions, this would be the time to ask. If not, we'll move on to the resolution and the levy, and you can ask questions and discuss it at that point.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So thank you, Wayne, for the presentation. We'll move on to unfinished business. I don't believe there is any for the town board. Under new business, we have resolution number T-2021-11-015, which is a resolution determining the amounts of money necessary to be raised by the tax levy for the tax year 2021, collectible in 2022. If you're using a paper packet, the resolution appears on one page, and then the second page of the resolution is on the back of the Blue Cross Blue Shield resolution. page. That makes sense. Okay.
So
Is
this is-
there a motion to get this on the floor, and then we'll have discussion?
I will move approval of resolution number T 2021-11-015, a resolution determining the amounts of money necessary to be raised by the tax levy for the tax year of 2021, collectible in 2022.
Second. Seconded by, or moved by Grace, or Mary Alice, seconded by Grace. Any questions for Wayne? Are you handling this one, Wayne?
I am. I'm
Okay.
handling all three of them. So this is a resolution asking, this resolution is required by the Truth in Taxation law. It requires us to put, to pass a resolution to put on file the amount of money we are gonna ask for in December. It has to be put so many days before it can be approved and then sent to the clerk. This $2.3 million number represents a number that if we were to, if Carl were to be resolved before the tax bills went out, before the tax rates were calculated, this would allow us to capture all that. We are still limited by the tax rate approved by voters of 0.3015. So no matter what, if our assessed valuation stays about where it's at, we'll probably get closer to, I want to say 1.9 million. If we get the additional assessed value, we'll get closer to the $2.3 million number. But we're still limited by the tax rate of 0.3015.
Nice.
Thanks for explaining some of that again. And so so you're saying if things got resolved with Carl and they were paying taxes, there wouldn't be a cap from a lower levy, so you couldn't accept that? Is that what you mean?
So right now our billable EAV is approximately 635 million, right? So give me a moment to pull out a calculator. So, hold on, guys. So if you take the 2.3 million and then divide it by 635 million, roughly, which is our billable EAV, and then you multiply that number by 100, you get 0.3622. That's what our tax rate would be. We won't get that much because we're limited to 0.3015. However, if you take that 635 million and multiply it by approximately 25%, that actually sends our rate down to about 0.2897. But the numbers I'm using are really rough right now. I have a spreadsheet that's more in detail that I can show you later. That kind of has the calculations. We're still dealing with Board of Review appeals, so I'm not quite certain how much of the EAV is going to be affected by that. Some of that's going to affect our new construction. New construction is treated a little differently than existing construction when it's when calculating the tax rate. Does that answer your question?
A little bit. I think I'll have to understand that situation a little better, but that's okay for now. I can move on to my other question was about this percentage. So you're saying that 2.3 million is 126% of what was actually collected last year, the 1.8 some million. And the law here in the preamble says that above 105%, we have the public notice and public hearing. Is that right? And is that what this is?
Yeah.
Okay. And so this meeting's okay too? We don't need like a separate hearing or something?
I still think we have a public hearing right before we pass a levy. This is the truth and taxation notice.
Okay. And then my other question was what election costs are included in that?
We don't have them.
Okay, it just makes it a law exclusive of election.
It's canned language from the statute.
Okay. Thanks. That's all for now.
Any other questions for Wayne? Chris?
So smaller townships have election costs sometimes, but we don't have them.
Wayne, you said that there's something pending from Carl Hospital, and I thought that the courts had settled the question and that Carl was tax exempt.
No, there's nothing settled about the Carl. There are appeals and appeals of appeals and appeals of appeals of appeals. There's nothing settled about Carl or OSF.
Any other questions? Chandra?
So to clarify, we are moving this resolution to, or voting on this resolution to, I guess, put a notice out, and then we have the public hearing, and then we vote again?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? All right, we have a motion on the floor. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Ms. Colacetti,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin.
Yes.
That motion passes. Next item is resolution number T 2021-11-016, a resolution authorizing Cunningham Township Supervisor to sign a contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield for health insurance effective January 1st, 2022.
So this is a resolution that allows the supervisor to sign a contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield. The rates were attached for the various plans. We haven't actually gone over them yet, but this resolution just allows us to sign the contract for next year. And I ask for approval.
Mary Alice.
So Wayne, on the Blue Cross Blue Shield, there appear to be 3 different plans, both for the PPO and for the HSA plans. And so based on what you just said, does that mean that you haven't selected one for this year?
No, me and Danielle typically do that in December, but we have the rates out now.
So do you know which one you guys are going to select?
Nope.
So we would be giving you approval to select any of them?
You booked a cozy Virgo mountain cabin with a kitchen.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me which plan you have this year?
The P503 PPO.
And is that equivalent to, we have the names on here, we have our blue, platinum, blue, gold, and blue silver.
So each plan has a plan number, and so this one is under the blue platinum, the P503 PPO.
Oh, it's the very top one. That's the one that you have right now. So then the estimated cost for that one would be $832.60 for just the employee. And then of course you have
employee only coverage.
Right, for employee only coverage. Do you know how much this has changed from last year?
I want to say it was approximately a 9% increase. Nicole, do you know how much we pay for employee only?
Honestly, I haven't had a chance to look over the new documents that were sent that closely because I thought we were going to take a look at it like next week. So,
do you know how much we pay now in the current plan for employee only?
Off the top of my head, no, because it's been moving around so much with people coming and going.
Right. Oh, and you know what? Rates. These rates that we're showing you are composite rates, and we are actually on an age-rated plan. So this is more like the composite rates represent kind of an average based on the ages of the members. So for example, I'm 36 years old. To cover me costs X amount of dollars. To cover someone that's 50 years old costs more. To cover someone that's 25 years old costs less.
I guess I'm wondering about timing here. Is this something that can be approved in December after you guys have looked at one of these plans and then propose one to the board?
We could.
I'd rather know which one we're voting on.
It's up to you guys.
Any other discussion? Sharice?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Mary Alice. If it comes down to, if once you know exactly what it is that you want or what works for you, it just seems for your offices, it seems like it would be easier to understand the rates and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So would you like to offer a motion to that effect, Mary Alice?
Sure. I will move resolution number T 2021-11-016, a resolution authorizing Cunningham Township Supervisor to sign contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield for health insurance effective January 1st, 2022 to the next meeting of Cunningham Township.
It'll be the December meeting.
Yes.
I'll second that.
So moved by Mary Alice, seconded by Sharice. Any discussion?
Well, because the other thing that I noticed in the resolution is that it says establishing a flexible savings account for the township will allow employees to save on their healthcare costs. So
that's the next resolution.
Oh, okay. So should these two resolutions be connected or?
They don't have to be. I don't think they should be. They're two totally different things.
Okay.
Well, they're different in that they're different services, but you can have flexible spending and I have the health plan. So they are different as an employee.
It'd be best to consider them separately.
Okay. So, I guess, what I'm thinking, so with what you have now, you have what's going to be with the other resolution, you have the flexible thing to save on your health care?
Yes.
Okay. Just
this
trying
resolution
to
focuses on the contract itself.
Yeah.
Right. So the resolution we're on is the health insurance.
Right. It's the Blue Cross Blue Shield. I'm just trying to understand how this works. Not being insured myself. Okay.
Chandra?
So this resolution is for them to sign the contract with Blue Cross and Blue Shield, correct? Not necessarily will they have the opportunity to then just tell us which one they choose in December? We can vote that they have the permission to sign the contract. And then when December comes, they just tell us which plan they've chosen. Do we have any bearing or impact on whether or which plan they even choose? So does it matter if we tell them to sign the contract this month or next month? Give that permission? That's just my input.
Is that a question?
Is that a question for me or?
Okay, well, does it matter whether we give you permission today or next month to sign this contract? And when you come back next month, if we pass this resolution today, you can come back next month and tell us which plan you've chosen, correct? It won't matter either way.
Right. I mean, it matters. It matters because we need part of the duties of the township board is to approve signing of contracts.
Right.
What we pick, I mean, we can pick every single health plan we can pick every single health plan on the sheet to offer and let employees just choose.
So my thing is us giving you permission today or next month, it doesn't necessarily impact which plan you choose ultimately.
No, I mean, y'all don't really have the say over which plan we choose.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, we would choose something within our budget, but yeah.
All right, currently there's a motion on the floor to move this item to the December meeting. Is that still the will of the board?
Nicole has a question.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote on that.
I think Nicole wanted to say something.
Okay, go ahead, Nicole.
I'm sorry, I just want to cut in here. I think part of the reason that we're putting the contract part at this meeting is because we do need to get that taken care of. I think we were trying to do it by the 1st of this month, so we're a little bit late. Again, it's just the confirmation that we are allowed to keep using Blue Cross Blue Shield as opposed to moving to someone else. So moving it to December would actually not be the best of things, just because we're trying to get all of this taken care of.
It most likely would require us to have a special meeting.
Okay. You want to withdraw your motion, Mary Alice?
I hesitate to vote on anything that I don't know the amount that we're voting on. So, I mean, I'm willing to hear other arguments, but I don't like saying, okay, pick one of these 9.
Well, you're not going to know the amount necessarily because employees go, employees leave, and because we're age rated, right? Like, I can tell you when I make a hiring decision, I don't know how old the people I'm hiring are because I don't ask that on a job application. And I certainly wouldn't make a decision based on we would pay more or less for health insurance for that person because that would be totally illegal. But because of the fact that, people leave, people go, someone might go from full-time to part-time, you're not going to know. The most you can know is a composite rate of how much individual coverage costs versus family coverage versus individual plus one versus, I mean, what I can tell you is that you authorized a budget. There was in July, there was a health insurance line. Unfortunately, and I've talked about this privately with some of you all, I think that our budget cycle should be calendar year instead of fiscal year. So it aligns with the health insurance more directly. But, when you approve the budget, we kind of guessed what the increase would be, not really knowing for the second half of the fiscal year, right? Now we know what the rates could potentially be for the second half of the fiscal year of this fiscal year and the first half of next fiscal year. So you really won't know. And again, you guys, it's based on who we hire and what they choose. And you don't have a say over who we hire.
I understand that we won't know the exact amount, but anyway, I'll let other people speak.
Nicole and then James.
Wayne, correct me if I'm wrong, but my thought is that we are going to continue to offer the same plan to the employees. So it's not that you're looking at 9 different plans, you're essentially looking at the same one. It's just going to be that we want to make sure that it is going to continue to be within our budget. And we don't know the exact amount yet, just because we could possibly lose some employees or gain some employees. But again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we're going to keep going with the same platinum.
So I don't want to I haven't had a conversation at all with Danielle, so I don't want to say that. What we've decided is that we thought it would be best to stay with Blue Cross Blue Shield. But you know, we haven't, I don't want to, I don't want to predict the future. I mean, I've not had a discussion with Danielle at all about this.
James, comment?
Yeah, I kind of feel similar to Mary Alice. It seems, I know we can't predict the future, but we could certainly say how much this is going to cost us at this point in time, right? That could be a dollar amount that could be said here. The more I hear, the less I understand. I'm not sure how this is in front of us. If Wayne, if you and Danielle have not discussed what you want to do and you're asking us to approve the contract, I understand the time pressure involved, but I don't know exactly what I'm voting on at this point.
Well, what you're voting on is giving Danielle permission to sign a contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield.
But what's the dollar amount? What's the commitment that we're making at this point in time?
At this point in time, that commitment would be a range from $11,281.73 a month on the high end to $7,733.11 on the low end. And actually, it's not practical for us to offer an HSA plan. So really the range is $11,281.73 to $85,482.
And that compares what's our current monthly commitment?
It was on the bills that you just approved. I couldn't tell you. Nicole might be able to.
I believe we're somewhere around $9,000 or $10,000, but again, it's been going up and down, so don't hold me to that.
Oh, so within $10,000 a year, $10,000 to $12,000 a year of what we're currently paying. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Grace.
Thank you. On this bills, I found the health insurance one of $3,500, but I don't know if that's included here. I wanted to make sure that I was understanding this. Yeah. Okay. So is this the quote on this from Blue Cross Blue Shield? This is the amounts that the township pays per employee or that employees pay?
I'm sorry.
Okay, which amount are you looking at? So the township pays 100% for employee only. I believe for employee plus one, employees pay $100 a month, and employees pay $400 a month for employee plus family.
Okay, thank you. And so I was trying to understand this, so we already have the budgeted amount set for annual or maybe monthly amount for health insurance coverage coming out of the township. and you'll make the best attempts to stay within that budget that already is kind of that amount. And we won't know the exact amount either way because it will depend on the age. And also you offer, like the township selects which plans they want to offer to employees, and then employees still pick their own plan. So it still might vary even depending on which ones you offer. Is this accurate so far?
Yeah, except that, I mean, we only offer one plan. So right now, we have the option to offer additional plans, but we don't.
And you think you'll be going with the current one, but you got to look and see about the budget stuff before deciding which one for sure.
Right.
So I guess my comment, I see the point of weird to approve the contract without knowing exactly what the contract is going to be. I also see the point that we're not going to know exactly the cost and what it's going to be either way. And we've kind of already set that amount in the budget. And if it's anything that exceeds the budget, I imagine there to be some kind of process for that. Is that right?
So yes, if we exceed a line item in our budget, we can do line item transfers up to 10%. If we needed to do line item transfers above 10% per fund, we would actually have to pass a new budget. Since I've been assessor, we've done line item transfers every year, except for last year where we passed a new budget, but a lot of that had to do with we had a lot of grant money coming in. And so we had to spend according to the grants that came in. And so spending went up, but of course that was covered by the grants, but we still need the budget to be approved to spend it. So that's why we have to approve a new budget. But we didn't approve a new budget because we overspent the money that we had. Does that make sense?
A little bit. So the way I see it here too, our options would be either have a special meeting before December 1st or whenever we need to agree to this so that it doesn't push back their thing. It seems like it wouldn't work well to push it back to the next regular meeting. So we'd have to do a special meeting before then, or now knowing that we would have to approve a new budget if it went beyond 10% if it's already allocated for health insurance.
If I understand you correctly, yes.
We have a meeting on the 15th and the 22nd. The 29th is the 5th Monday, and there's no council meeting.
That's probably the meeting that we would do.
Maybe. Depends on people, if people are available. Jaya.
I did want to come back to what's in the income and expense that we just approved, because health insurance is listed for October 13th through November 2nd is $3,580.24. And I don't know if that's because it's only a partial month, but even so, it doesn't get to that 11,000. So I guess I would also want to see, I understand, again, we've approved that budget, but just out of what I feel is best practice, I want to know what I'm voting on. And so I'd like to know which number we're voting on, especially since it's not clear with what we are currently reviewing where that difference would be.
Okay, I think we'll go ahead and vote on the motion that's on the floor unless there's anything else people want to add.
Which motion's on the floor?
So the motion on the floor is to move resolution T 2021-11-016 to the next township meeting. And that could be a special meeting or the next regular meeting to be determined. It was moved by Mary Alice, seconded by Sharice. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
No.
Ms. Colacetti,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkins.
Yes.
That motion passes 6-1. And we'll move on to resolution number T 2021-11-017, which is a resolution authorizing Cunningham Township Supervisor to sign a contract with key benefit administrators.
This is a resolution to authorize the township supervisor to sign a contract for flexible spending with key benefit administrators. The contract is attached. We have asked for extensions to get this signed. And all the information is in there. The cost and everything. Of course, the cost depends on how many employees, want to use it. So, any questions?
Mary Alice.
I don't have a question, but this is something that is we do every year. It's just having an administrator for it. So I'm happy to make a motion to approve resolution number T 2021-11-017, a resolution authorizing the Cunningham Township Supervisor to sign a contract with key benefit administrators.
I'll second.
Moved by Mary Alice, seconded by James. I did notice in the contact information, you're still listing Darcy Sandifer as an additional contact and a billing contact. And I assume you'll want to take that out of the.
Yeah, we'll take that out administratively.
Okay, any discussion on this one? All right, will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Ms. Colacetti,
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yeah.
Mr. Evans.
Yes.
That motion passes. Okay.
And if I may, just really quickly, Danielle's predecessor moved the township from the city plan to where the township has their own plan. Since I took office, I've been trying to move the township back onto the city plan. We use the city plans for dental, and actually just dental. We don't offer vision because the city plan, I don't really know how that stuff works. But if we could find a way to combine where our group can go along with the city, that would make this process so much simpler. So I would implore you all to do anything you can do to help that along, because I have done everything I can do to help that along and have not been successful.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, with no further business before the Cunningham Town Board, this meeting is adjourned.